We're going to go ahead and get started. There's some people still coming that will arrive a little bit later, but my name is Nat Moore, former Miami Dolphin wide receiver, played for 13 years, and still work for the Miami Dolphins. I've been back in the front office for the last 12 years. Tonight is about educating our guys to make sure you're equipped with the things that you need to know so that when that time comes and you need some help because or through the NFL concussion settlement, you'll have that information. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. Sean Wooden.
Chris serves as co-lead counsel in the concussion lawsuit against the NFL on behalf of over 20,000 retired NFL players. In 2011, Chris first filed lawsuits on behalf of several retired NFL players. This lawsuit, guys, is for the next 65 years. So it covers each and every one of us to the day we die. To the day we pass, this lawsuit will cover you. So it's not just for the guys that are suffering right now, it's for the guys that don't know the future, that has that worry every day. I know I had that worry, and that's the reason why I got involved in this case. And that's the reason why when I sat down with Chris, and I sat down with the other attorneys and they asked me to be the class representative, I knew I had those worries, so I knew other players had those worries as well. My other former brothers that played this game. And it was very important to me to make sure they had a voice. Make sure that we all had a voice. It wasn't just the guys that are suffering, which definitely needs to be taken care of as soon as possible, but also the guys that just don't know. You just don't know what the future holds for any of us, so I wanted to make sure that we were covered as well, and Chris made sure of that. Now I'm also going to introduce our claims administrator. This is the gentleman, guys, that pretty much his company is in charge of handling our claims. Everybody thinks that the NFL is the one that's doing your claim. It is not. The NFL did not choose the BAP network that we have to use if after January you have to take a test. If you took a test before then, that test is it's good. You can use that test is good, but if you haven't taken the test before January of this year, you have to go through this BAP network. And Chris, and also the special masters, is involved in picking those doctors. It is not the NFL doctors. I want to stress that, because a lot of people ask, well, the NFL has control of the money, the NFL has control of the doctors. No, they don't. The NFL put the money up. They came to the table. They came to the table and said, we're going to cover everybody for the next 65 years, no matter how much it costs. At first, you might have heard stories of $700-something, $980 million. However, it's unlimited now, guys. The NFL has said that they will make sure that every one of those 20,000 people, if something happens with a serious neurocognitive injury or a disease happens to you, you will be covered. So just want to make sure that everybody's clear of that. So Orrin Brown is a founding partner of Brown Greer PLC, the court-appointed firm overseeing the claims administration program for the NFL concussion settlement. Orrin and his company oversee all functions of the implementation of the settlement, including managing registration, the class applications, the claims applications, and the website. So without further ado, I would like to invite Chris and Orrin up. Do it. Maybe, I think Chris is going to give his presentation first.
Yeah, Orrin, come on up. I mean, I'm going to go through a very brief PowerPoint, just hitting the highlights, because I think I want to save some time for questions. But, what? Put it up? Okay. But I do want to say one thing about Sean. I've been doing this kind of work for a long time. I've been suing pharmaceutical companies, manufacturers of products. That's what I do. And I've had class reps before, but I've never had anybody like Sean Wooden. Sean was so committed to this case, never once asked for anything for himself, never once even posed the question, is there anything in it for me? That's hard for any of us to do. I mean, we all have tendencies to ask that question. And he would have been appropriate if he did, but he never did. And he has been, in my opinion, I don't think there is anybody else that we could have gotten. And I say we, I feel like I'm a part of this community as well. Anybody better than Sean? There is nobody better. He's really done a great job. And believe me, he was active. He was active. I mean, he'll tell you when we were in the breakout, I won't take a lot of your time now, but as we were negotiating with the NFL, we ran into problems Some of the owners are not like the owners you have here. I can name a few, but some of them are very tough, and we were running things by Sean, getting his opinion on it. So I will start by saying this. I think we have achieved something very important. It's not perfect. You're not going to hear me try to claim that it's perfect. It's the result of a litigation, and nothing that comes out of a litigation is perfect, but it's good. I think it's really, really good. And it accomplishes the goal that we set out to achieve from day one, which was to get help to the players and their families who need it now. And then to be there for the players who, God forbid, may come down with one of these problems, these compensable injuries down the road, that it'll be there for them, so they don't have to worry about their wives and their kids and their families. In addition to that, and I'll go through the PowerPoint, it sets up baseline testing, and I'm gonna spend a minute or two talking about it. But I'm gonna go through this quickly. I made Oren promise to be quick. He's normally not that fast, but we're gonna give him a limit, and I might start kicking him at some point. But we're gonna hit the highlights here. There we go. So look, just a couple of important landmarks on dates. The case has been around, it's been settled since 2015, but as you all know, there were appeals. There were objectors, players who had legitimate concerns about the settlement, some lawyers that were involved with them that weren't as legitimate in my opinion, but I'm not critical of the players for expressing concerns. As a result of some of those concerns expressed by players once the case was settled, we made changes to the settlement. We tried to improve it even more. So that helped in some respect. We went through the Third Circuit. The case went all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, who refused to hear it, and the case is now final. As of January 7, 2017, that is actually the effective date. That's very important because if you have a diagnosis of a neurocognitive or neuromuscular problem before that date, and it was done by a board-certified, legitimate doctor, those diagnoses will be honored in the settlement. After that date, you have to go to one of the approved doctors in the settlement. We can talk about in the Q&A session about why we have that, how the negotiations resulted in that requirement. It was actually very important, but I won't take up a lot of time right now. One other thing I want to say too, just based on where we are. August 7th, we're going to get into this. August 7th is the cutoff for registering. I thought that was on the next slide, but it's not. I didn't memorize it. August 7th is the cutoff for registering. I don't know if there's anybody in this audience who hasn't registered, but the goal in the next 30, 40 days for me is to get every single retired player registered. Right now, standing here today, I just checked the numbers, we have 15,239 players and families registered out of about 22,000. So we're short still. If you're not registered, you can't get any of the benefits of the settlement. That is just the nature of a class action settlement. That's the way they work. So we gotta, if you folks in the audience have not yet registered, do it. If you know somebody that hasn't, please tell them to, and if they need help doing it, that's your man right there. He'll walk them through it. I think, Oren, we timed how long it would take to register online. It's about 2 minutes, right? Yeah. So it's really nothing. 3 components to the settlement, I'll remind you all. The baseline assessment program, that's the value of it. There's a monetary award fund, which is uncapped, as Sean said. And that's very important because the more folks we get registered, we're more likely to capture, obviously we get 22,000 retired players registered, we are more likely to capture each and every guy that gets a diagnosis, and we make sure that they'll get awarded whatever they have coming to them under the settlement. So that's critical. If people aren't registered, that won't happen for everybody. So please, let's push to get all the guys registered. And then there's $10 million set aside for education programs. To be honest with you, we've been so focused on implementing the settlement, getting the baseline assessment doctors up and running, getting the monetary award fund up and running, which is now finally, many awards have been made, money is moving out the door to players that had an existing diagnosis. We haven't focused that much on the education program. I'm open to suggestions. You know, the idea behind the $10 million education program is to try to, you know, it's to do a few things. One is to educate the NFL player community about what benefits they have available to them, not just in the settlement, but also from the union. And that's very important because those two, you can collect both. If you're entitled to get a disability payment under your union program, you get that in addition to the settlement. But we think some of the other ideas that we've played with is trying to, you know, look at ways that we can make the game safer. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know how possible that is. I mean, as long as big, strong people run into each other, I think there are going to be issues with concussions. But we're looking into whatever's out there. Try to make the game safer if we can. So this is the slide I thought was coming up next. So August 7th, we need to register by. We've got over 15,000 registered. And the biggest takeaway from this, and I'm going to say this 100 times tonight, and it's the only thing you'll be having nightmares about me saying it, if you're not registered by August 7th, you can't get any benefits. That's critical. About the baseline assessment program, just one point to really highlight. Yeah, I see people taking pictures. Please do. Take this, and I can even make this NAT available to you if you want to give some of this stuff away. I mean, maybe that'll be helpful. If you're 43 years and older now, you got 2 years to get tested. If you're not 43 years old now, you got 10 years or 2 years after you turn 43. So I know that sounds complicated, but the bottom line is if you're over 45, you got 2 years. If you're under 45, you got either 10 years or when you turn 45. That's important. Why is that important? Because we spent a lot of time with medical doctors negotiating this deal. They didn't just put their time into the monetary award fund diagnosing dementia, ALS, and Parkinson's. We put this together because we really believe that with regard to the younger players, if they get tested now, we can identify problems early and get them treated. Now, you know, it's a settlement, and I understand it pays cash out, but none of us want to trade our mental capabilities for a check. So the key was to get to guys early. If they start showing problems early, get them treated. The other advantage to the baseline assessment program, and why I don't care if you retired yesterday, why it's important, whether you're older or younger, is because if you have that baseline, doctors in the future can see if there's a decline very clearly. They can test you 10, 20 years later if you start to have a problem, and they can compare that against the baseline. I will also tell you that the experts that we hired to set up these baseline tests, I understand they're complicated and they take hours. They do. But they are state of the art. We had the absolute best neurologists and neuropsychologists put this together. The absolute best. I mean the experts who wrote the treatise that medical students learned from. So it's the best of the best, and we really hope everybody avails himself of it. These are the compensable injuries in the settlement. ALS. I didn't mention this, but I really should because he's not here, but Kevin. You know, as you guys know, Kevin Turner was also our other class rep who worked with Sean and us, was also very active, was also selfless, despite the fact that he was struggling with ALS and has now passed away. Again, never really asked a question about himself, was always thinking about his colleagues and his brothers, and that's the way both of these guys were throughout the whole settlement. Death with CTE, and as you all know by now, there's a cutoff of April 22nd, 2015. We can talk about that in the Q&A if you want. Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and we got 2 levels of dementia, and the reason we did that is very important. Level 1.5 is early dementia. We didn't want a guy to have to wait until he has full-blown dementia before he can collect the benefit. So if somebody is diagnosed in the early stages of dementia, they will get an advance payment against their dementia payment. Now, it is a degenerative disease. Some people do a better job at holding it off than others, but eventually the likelihood is if you've got early dementia, you're going to wind up with full-blown dementia, and then you get another payment. Just some aspects of the settlement before I hand it off to Oren that's very important. It's uncapped, as I said. There is no requirement in this settlement that you prove causation. You don't have to prove you had a concussion, it's assumed. If you played in the NFL and you practiced and you played, you probably don't even know how many concussions you had. So you had a concussion, you don't have to prove it. You don't need a medical doctor attributing a concussion to your problem. It's all assumed in the settlement. You just need a diagnosis. And you know, the exact amount of the monetary award will depend on factors like your age of diagnosis and how long you played in the league. One of the key points that Sean made before, I'm not going to go through every factor here. We'll hand it out for people. We'll get it to you. But this is not the NFL's program. I'm not going to say the NFL doesn't have involvement. They do have involvement. They have say. But we do too. Orrin Brown was not brought in by the NFL. Orrin Brown and I have worked together on other cases. He administered settlements in cases that I've been involved with. He is the best out there. In another settlement that involved billions of dollars, Orrin got that money out the door to the claimants. It was a pharmaceutical case in 18 months. So he is the best of the best also. We brought Orrin in, the NFL agreed to it. If I had to fight that with the judge, I think she would have gone our way. I think the NFL probably realized we would have gotten Orrin if we had to fight that out. The doctors are not picked by the NFL. They are involved in the discussion, but we have an opportunity. If we saw doctors that we thought were not going to be objective or somehow had a bias toward the NFL, we were able to reject them, and we did. We rejected many of them. And the NFL, other than funding, and obviously the one big concern the NFL had, and we can talk about this a little bit later, is they obviously didn't want people filing false claims. That was a concern of theirs, that people would file fraudulent claims. It's not a big problem, but it's a problem that sometimes occurs in any settlement. And so they are able to monitor it for that too. And they do have a right to appeal awards if they think that a diagnosis was not properly done for some reason. And this is an important point I want to say. And I know this is being videotaped, so I'm going to say this as tactfully as I can. I know that there are a lot of groups out there trying to solicit players, telling them that we'll give you money if you go get tested. If you come to my doctor, I'll get you tested. It's all set up for you. You don't need somebody to send you to a doctor. You don't need anybody to advance you any money. It's set up there for you to do it. I would just be very wary of that. If somebody's telling you they're going to send you to a doctor, there are two problems with that. One is you can no longer get a diagnosis outside of the program. It's got to be done in the program. And the second thing is if they're sending people, if these charlatans or these people out there doing this are sending people to doctors that are not legit, it's going to be denied. The claim is going to be denied. So I think, I don't mean to be short about it, but I say, really, let's stick with the program because the program works. As I said, it's already paying money out. Claims are being approved. Oren's going to give you some of the numbers when he stands up here, and you'll see it for yourselves. This is my last slide, and I'm going to hand it off to Oren, and then I'll wait for questions. You have to register. So I'm really asking for your help. I've gone around the country since the settlement was approved with groups like this of NFL players, and I've begged you guys to give me some help. If you know of colleagues that are so deteriorated that they can't help themselves, send them to us, send them to Oren. We'll get them registered. But tell us who they are because we're having a hard time finding everybody. I'm getting a little nervous about the fact that we're a month, 40 days out. We've got over 15,000 players registered. That's a good number. I think people looking from the outside would think that it's a good number, but we want perfection. So we have to really try to get everybody. And with that, I'm going to have Oren give his presentation, and I'll shut up for a while. There you go. You need that.
I got it.
All right.
All right, thanks, Chris. Okay, I'm Oren Brown. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I'm really honored to be here. It is a real privilege and honor to work on this program for you, and I mean that. We work for this program. We work for the people who deserve to get benefits from this program. We are, as Chris said, an independent administrator selected by the parties, appointed by the court. We do not take orders from the NFL. We do not take orders from class counsel. This settlement agreement is our playbook. This is what we put to work. We make this program successful because we administer it, we implement it the way it's written, the way the court approved it, and we do it quickly and we do it correctly. And we've been doing this for 25 years. And this program is a serious responsibility that we take very seriously. Tonight's goal is to show you some of the basic things about how it works, how you can navigate this program, or your lawyer can navigate this program. It's all pretty straightforward. The main takeaway from tonight that I'd like for you to have is you do not have to memorize all of this. There's a lot of pieces to this settlement. It's a very good settlement. It's extremely well-written settlement. It's got a lot of benefits in it. But you don't have to memorize all of this. All you have to do is know how to contact us or have your lawyer contact us. We will walk you through every step of this. We are open. We want to hear from you. If you contact us, we will help you or your lawyer. We are not the cable company. We're not an insurance company. We are people who are fiduciaries who want to get this done correctly and get it done quickly. Okay? So what I wanted to do, Chris and I wanted to do tonight is walk you through some of the basics. A lot of what some of this you've already heard about. Some of it you've already gotten past these steps. But these are the pieces to make this work. And there's a lot of information here we're going to go through pretty quickly. We want to save time for you to ask questions and for us to help you with specific things. But these are the things that I'm going to talk about pretty quickly. Chris has heard a lot of these things from me. We could talk for hours, or I could talk for hours. I promised him I wouldn't do that.
We won't let him do that tonight.
He's not going to let me do that. Okay, so some things about the deadlines. Chris has already said this 3 times, 4 times. You have to remember this piece. Everybody's got to register by August 7th. That's the deadline. We'll see a couple of exceptions in a minute, but August 7th is our date to get you to sign up. And who registers? Any player, a living player who played in the NFL or these other leagues that are considered to be NFL professional football under the settlement. If you didn't opt out it was October 14, 2014, then if you didn't opt out, put yourself out of the settlement, you register with us. Even if you did opt out, you can still revoke that. Ask us, parties consent, the judge approves, so it's not too late to get back in, even if you opted out. And the people who cannot do it are people who are still playing, who are still on an active list or under contract after that July 7, 2014 date, okay? So the players, you register. An incompetent player, a legally incapacitated player, or a deceased player registers by a representative claimant, a spouse, an executor, somebody who's handling their affairs, signs up with us. And also family members. The settlement calls them derivative claimants because their claims derive from their relationship with a player, a spouse, a family member, a sibling. The laws vary from state to state as to who that is, but family members can register too, and we have almost 2,000 who have. You have a slightly different deadline to do that we'll touch upon throughout this, but everybody should think of August 7 as a deadline to register. Family members should register by then too, but you have until 30 days after your player registers and submits a claim form to register. So you kind of trail behind the players a little bit, but why not go ahead and get it done? There is no downside to registering. All you do is sign up with us, and we'll see how that works, okay? The quickest way to do it is just do it online. You or your lawyer goes to the NFL concussionsettlement.com website that we set up. We've been working on this since 2013 with Chris and his firm and others, and we host the website. We handle all this. So if you want to go online and register, you just go to that page and click that button. Register now. And it's just like ordering on Amazon. It just takes you through these screens where you'll put in who you are, the player's name. You type in this information and you just click continue. And these are the screens that walk you through the process. You fill in the information on who the player was. And if you have your ID that was on the notice mailed to you, if you put that in the top of it, then it fills it all for you. It's already there. You can correct it if it's wrong, but it's already there for you. So you go screen to screen online to do it, and then all you have to do is click verify. You don't have to sign it. You don't have to print it. You just click the verify button, and you're verifying that it's correct, and then it'll tell you you're registered. It's just signing up. We time this out, and it takes 2 to 3 minutes to go through the screen. It's really easy. We want it to be easy, and then you can even, where it says my registration form, you can print it out if you want to. It'll print it out on paper for you. But you can do it online, or your lawyer can do it online. After you do it, you get a chance to set up basically an account with us, a portal, just like setting up your Amazon account, so that you can get a username and a password and come back to us whenever you want by filling that in, and all your stuff is there. Okay? Your lawyer does this. If you have a lawyer, lawyers do this for you, or if you're not represented, you can do this yourself. You set it up with us, and then you've got your own account with us, always there. We'll help you make sure that works. You can register on hard copy. Some of them are out here in the lobby tonight. I brought some with me too. You fill this out on paper, email it to us, mail it to us, or deliver it to us. we'll take care of it. So you can do it on paper too. That's what the form looks like you've seen outside here, okay? Derivative claimants, we talked about this. Your spouse, a family member, a parent in some states, a child, you should register too with us, and there's a process for you to file claims that we'll see in a few minutes too. A derivative claim is a family member claim is separate from a player claim. The derivatives get 1% of the player's award to split. You have to file a claim form. It's basically a one-page thing that you file with us. And you have a lot more time to do that. You don't have to file the derivative claim until 30 days after the player gets an award. So there's a lot of time left on that. And we will tell you when that is coming if you register with us. Okay? Yeah. Right. A family member or derivative can register now, but you don't have to yet.
Right.
We'd like for you to, because we like to know, get it all going. But if you're a family member, you can register, sign up with us 30 days after the player submits a claim, a monetary award claim. So you have until then to submit your registration or tell your family members to go ahead and register after you send us a claim. So that's not running on you yet until the player has submitted a claim. Register with us, and then you have, if you're a family member, until 30 days after the player gets an award to send in your claim form. So you trail behind the players a little bit because the player's claim is the one that really leads the way. Okay? So if you, and Chris mentioned this, the baseline assessment program, the BAP program, once we get your registration, we'll go through it. If you have at least half a season, you're eligible to get a free exam in the BAP. If you were an NFL player or one of the other associated leagues and you played at least half a season, you get a free exam in this BAP program. It is administered by the Garrettson Resolution Group, not us. The Garrettson Group is also an independent administrator, Cincinnati and Charlotte. We work with them in a lot of programs. They pick the doctors for the BAP. So the BAP, if you get in here, you get this free exam. It's easy to do this. There's a HIPAA form, this consent to use of your information that you sign when you go to a doctor's office. The Garrison Group has one of those that you have to sign to allow this to happen. And you go get this free exam, and they can diagnose these 3 levels of cognitive impairment, 1, 1.5, and 2, in escalating severity, okay? And that exam is free. The NFL, this program pays for this exam. The level 1 injuries don't get a monetary award, but you get these supplemental benefits of additional care, treatment, prescription medications if you're at that level of impairment. Before this program opened, we rounded up 30 different data sets on players. We got a huge history of playing time from the NFL. We went on NFL.com and designed a bot to crawl over the site and pull in all the player information it had. We got information from a bunch of member clubs. We have access to an online statistics system that the sports industry uses. So we've got a whole lot of information on playing time already. And that considers you, and that includes active roster, practice squad, development squad. Back into the 80s, some of the data before then is harder to get. And it considers you're on that list and you get credit for it if you're on the active roster. I think it's the 43 roster.
I think that's
or
right.
I don't think it matters.
Do you know Scott,
But,
do you know?
The bottom line is we have information on about 90% of you players, and we've already credited you with the seasons. Right now, and this is done by the Garrettson Group that we work with and the parties are working with, they've lined up 186 BAP doctors in 52 cities. Miami has, I think, 5 or 6 doctors. There's some other, Fort Lauderdale, Jacksonville, other cities in Florida. The only way to do this is to get kind of target cities and figure out where most people live, because we looked at the demographics of the players, the former players, and what cities they lived around. And so this is the list right now. It's continuing to grow. They're still adding doctors all around the country, but the goal is to have enough doctors where people don't have to travel very far, okay? And if you have a problem with that, you should ask, because when you schedule your appointments, you can do it online, or you can call this number. It's our number. It goes directly to the Garrettson people to help you find the doctor. If you get a diagnosis from an MAF doctor, and the doctor fills out that form that certifies what it is,
I want to get that guy's number who said that he
then there's no way we can deny it unless
asking that question. Who said
the
he was
records
told.
don't support
You know
it,
who that is?
which I don't think that's going to happen. But if that doctor makes a mistake and signs a form that says he has
We're gonna have
ALS,
to find out how we're being told.
when in his records he said he doesn't have ALS, we would catch that. But if you have a qualified MAF physician on the list of doctors that we found, make that diagnosis and they fill out the paperwork and you give us the claim form, it's not going to be denied. Yes, if you submit one claim and it gets paid and then the condition gets worse, then you can file a supplemental monetary award.
Injured
You can have the same doctor or a different doctor make that diagnosis,
definition.
and you would get the player would get the difference between what he was paid before and what the more serious award would be. There is no time limit.
So, I've been doing personal injury cases for many years. I'm not a tax expert, but I will tell you, they're not supposed to be taxed. But you still, because the theory, well, forget about it. I'm not going to get into the tax code, but a compensation for a personal injury is not supposed to be taxed. I can't imagine you live in a state where that would be different, but because I don't know all 50 states, you might want to ask somebody local that can answer that question. But typically, they're not taxed. So that's an even more complicated issue, because remember, before the case was settled, people had lawyers representing them, and presumably those lawyers were prepared to take those cases to trial. And as you guys know, plaintiffs' lawyers work on a contingent fee basis. They're not like defense lawyers. They don't get paid by the hour, because if they did, they wouldn't get paid anything. Nobody would be able to afford to pay $1,000 an hour. So lawyers agreed to take these cases early on, prepared to take them to trial. They're going to take the position, I'm just going to tell you that, hey, when there was risk, and before the settlement, when the NFL was fighting, and everybody was predicting we were all going to lose, I was there for you. That's going to be the mentality. So they're not going to walk away from the fee, but again, I would simply say, I do know of many cases where people are calling lawyers up and saying, 40% is high, or 30% is high, could you do better for me? And they are. They're doing better.
So one thing I want to point out about that too is
I'm going to come back to you. We're going to get your microphone.
Yeah, you don't. There are some claims handling firms around that aren't lawyers that are saying they can get you more money, and you don't need one of them because they don't do anything that you couldn't do on your own with us. Yeah, good question. And we have so much player information, and for a lot of them, we don't know that we have the right address or whether they're still living or anything, but we have a lot of old information. And we've preloaded all of that. So if you go on and put in a name or
Well, I guess
it's
my
all
question
there.
is for those who may be off the grid and don't go on, at least that way it could hold their place.
Right. We haven't pre-registered anybody. I mean, we have all the information in there, but we're not signing up anybody because we don't know that they really want to. But we have before we get to August 7th, we're going to start sending out more reminders to people who are on that list saying, you haven't registered yet, don't you want to? Okay, we're going to keep prodding people to register, but we haven't registered everybody on our own because the settlement doesn't allow us to do that. And we want to make sure we have the right information and that you want to register. MEF doctor is not paid for by the program. You pay for it out of your own health insurance, just like any trip to the doctor, and that's on your own. Now, if you get the diagnosis of one of these conditions, one of the 6 payable conditions, and you submit a claim, then you get the award. But the actual cost of the medical exam by a qualified MAF physician on that list is not paid by the program.
The BAP is. Yeah.
The BAP is paid by the program. The 2 sets of doctors, 2 different lists. A lot of the doctors that are BAP doctors are also MAF doctors.
When you go for the BAP exam, most of the people are going to walk in wanting to know, am I okay? That's going to be the big question. I mean, I'm feeling kind of okay. Maybe I forgot where my keys are, but am I okay? So there's a whole battery of tests to answer that question. Presumably, let's say, again, 10 years down the road, we hope this doesn't happen to anybody, but 10 years down the road, those symptoms are really starting to come on. One of these, well, not death with CTE, that's separate, but dementia. You know, you or your family, maybe not you, but your family is going to know something's up. And you bring somebody into a doctor's office and you say, doctor, does my husband have dementia, or do I? That might be a more narrowed form of testing that would be done. It wouldn't be the wide battery of tests that you'll get in the BAP. Like I said, the BAP is state of the art. It's designed to be broad, to really test and see where people are from a neurocognitive standpoint. But with one of these, if you walk into a doctor's office, you don't necessarily have to have a 6-hour test for that. They may have something more streamlined because they can see the symptoms, and the families this is a big thing. I mean, many times these diagnoses are made based on the fact that the guy's wife or the kids come in and say, Dad's not the same, you know, and here's why. And then the doctor kind of knows what to look for. So it could be a little different, and not a 6-hour test. I don't know the answer to that. I'll tell you why. Because the way it works is you go to the BAP doctor to get your baseline test or to get a diagnosis. Most people, once they get a diagnosis of one of these bad conditions, get compensated. And they're pretty much done at that point. I had never really thought about a situation where somebody is already diagnosed, let's say with dementia, and then they would want to go back to the BAP because it never really, I mean, I just hadn't considered why would you want to get another test for the settlement.
Doesn't the BAP program offer resources? Like
yeah. Oh, okay. So
so what are some of the benefits of the BAP program?
Yeah, the resources are, so if you go through, well, there are a couple things. One is you get the testing. The second thing is you may get the testing, but you might not qualify for a compensation award. That would be a score of a 1 that Oren was talking about, where the player would then get some other supplemental benefits. Treatment by a doctor, pharmaceutical help if they need it, those kinds of, those benefits are there, but they're for people who are really not getting to the point of getting compensation. So if you have a diagnosis and you get compensated, that typically is the end of the
So they don't go and do
Yes.
the BAP test?
So I have to go look at
Yeah.
the agreement. I'd never actually considered that. Can you?
You can.
Okay.
If you file a monetary award claim,
It's the first time I've ever been asked that question.
yeah, it's the first time I've heard it, but I've looked it up. If you file a monetary award claim, whether it's successful or not, you can still get a baseline examination if you've registered and you have at least half an eligible season of playing time. But the baseline examination just gives you the exam. If you have a successful monetary award and you get paid, you cannot later get supplemental BAP benefits for the 1.0, level 1 conditions, which are their prescriptions and extra care. Because I think the premise is you've already had a more serious condition and been paid for it. But you can, to answer your first question, if you have an MAF diagnosis and file an MAF claim, you can still go get a BAP exam.
But if you have anything higher than a level 1.5, then it doesn't make a difference because you won't be eligible for any of the resources, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
So what is the settlement? I mean, Oren, do you have that at the top of your head? I mean, my understanding and my recollection of the provision is you have to submit medical records sufficient to show the diagnosis. Now, does it need to have the magic word dementia in it? I'm not sure, but it'll have to be backed up by at least the testing so that an independent doctor could look at it and say, that's a case of dementia or ALS or Parkinson's. So,
Yeah, the settlement says they have to reflect the diagnosis. And then it pins down, whenever that diagnosis is made, fixes your age to put you on the grid. And it doesn't take a whole lot of records, but we take this sworn certification from the diagnosing physician who says what he or she thinks the condition was and when, and then there has to be some records that reflect that back it up. But it's really a medical judgment as to when the player reached the level of 1.5 or 2 or one of these other conditions.
So I guess the question would be for me is, say 2005, there was a diagnosis of, neurocognitive impairment. 2009, there was Alzheimer's, and 2012 or 13 was Parkinson's, and then ultimately he died of CTE, which was, that was in April of 2014. So that is the process, and we have the documentation on the death with CTE.
this is an important point, though.
Yeah.
You just pointed out something I didn't get to tonight, and you just reminded me of it. Under this settlement, if you're diagnosed with dementia, and that turns into ALS or Parkinson's, and he would be entitled to I say entitled, I mean he passed away, and I'm sorry for that. I'm just saying under the settlement, he would be entitled to additional compensation for those other injuries. So just so you know when you file the claim.
Death with CTE has to be diagnosed by tissue examination after death, so it only can be diagnosed after death. And this settlement sets the deadline. The death had to occur before it's February 15, 2015. There's a cutoff. It's the date of the court's final approval date. So all the death with CTE claims have already happened. If they happen after that date, in February 2015, if it's a death later, then it's not payable in here as death by CTE, but that player likely had some of these other conditions leading up to that, some of which actually paid more than the death with CTE. So that player or the player's family representative should still file a claim. Okay, thanks. And I'm here to help, so I want to, any questions you have or whatever guidance I can give, we want to make sure you know how to get through this process and that you're comfortable that this is going to work. It's going to work for you or your player. And we've gotten up to the point where we're looking at, we talked about the BAP, we talked about getting a free exam. We've had a lot of discussion about the monetary awards. And if you want to file for a monetary award, a claim for a monetary award, then there's 3 ways to go about that, to get the diagnosis. If you had a diagnosis from before January 2017, which was the effective date of the settlement, you go back to that doctor and get him or her to fill out a form, a diagnosing physician certification, which is available from us or on the website. And it has to be a certain kind of doctor, board certified neurologist, neurosurgeon. There's a bunch of people who are neurological specialists who can sign that form. You go through the BAP. That can give you a diagnosis of 1.5 or 2. That's the basis for a monetary award. Then you file a claim for a monetary award. Or you go to one of the qualified MAF physicians, which we talked about a lot, and I think some people may have already done it. That list is out, and you can get an exam that we talked about the player has to pay for to see if you have one of those conditions. And then filing a claim has 5 pieces. Filing a claim, you file that claim with us. There's a claim form, there's that diagnosing physician certification that the doctor fills out. You have to give us some medical records we talked about that reflect the diagnosis. There's a HIPAA, another HIPAA authorization form, 1-page thing. And then your employment stuff that we talked about earlier. But let me go through real quickly how that works. Okay? The best way to do this is online. You go online and click, I want to file a claim, and you go through the screens online. You can do it in hard copy. There's a hard copy claim form too. But if you go online, it takes you through each piece. On the website, you fill out the claim form. You click here, you type in some stuff, your information's already in there if we know who you are. You go through each of these steps online, walks you through each piece. The diagnosing physician certification form, if you go to an MAF doctor, he or she already has it. They fill it out online with us. You don't have to worry about it. You can see if you look up your claim, or your lawyer does, whether you already have it. It'll have a big check mark next to it if you already have it. Medical records, you upload them in PDFs to us, or you mail them to us. And then your playing time, the HIPAA form, you go online and it's a fill in your signature, your name and address. If it's not already there, you can do that online. That takes a matter of a few seconds. You don't even have to sign it. You just type your name into it. And then on the playing records piece, it will show you what we've already credited you based on all the information we have. And you can say, yep, that's right, or no, I got more. And you can fill in how much more you have and send us records to try to establish that. Like even pay stubs or newspaper articles or anything that shows you're on an active roster or on a practice squad during any period of time. But if you have 5.0 or more seasons up there, then you don't need to prove anymore. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't matter that you played more years, because the only people who have a reduction to their monetary award are people who played fewer than 5 seasons. Okay? So we're trying to eliminate, for most people, having to prove that you played in the NFL. If you submit that claim package to us, we review it. It goes through these steps. We'll figure out how much the award should be. We're going to tell you that. If you're missing something, this deficiency notice, if you're missing a piece of it, we will tell you that, or your lawyer. We'll send the notice. We'll tell you exactly what's missing and exactly how you fix it. And the settlement gives you 120 days to do that. So you got 4 months to fill in the gaps. But the idea here is to get everything that you need to substantiate your claim and not to have any sort of barriers or hurdles that you have to jump over. This is not trying to trap somebody. This is just getting the stuff that the settlement agreement requires, and we will help you do that, or help your lawyer make sure you do it. We look at it to make sure it's complete, it's got all the pieces, and then we review the diagnoses on most of these. The ones that are done outside the BAP, the ones that were done before January of 2017, the older diagnoses, they go to a special panel of doctors, 5 neurosurgeons that the court appointed, who review the diagnoses to make sure they were done by the right kind of doctor and that they're correct. These were not done, these are older diagnoses, not done by an MAF doctor or a BAP doctor. So this panel, not the NFL, this panel of doctors looks to make sure they're the right kind of doctor and that they got the diagnosis right. We've already sent them claims and they're reviewing them now, okay? There are deductions from your award in the grid. If you played fewer than 5 seasons, you get this percentage deduction. The people who played longer than 5 seasons get the full award. There are these 2 haircuts you take if you had a stroke or a traumatic brain injury before you got the diagnosis that had nothing to do with football, like if you were in a car wreck. We don't expect to see many of them, but the settlement agreement provides for these reductions. And then there's a 10% deduction if you didn't go through the BAP. We talked about that earlier, for some people, not everybody. So these qualified MAF doctors are people we picked. A lot of them are also BAP doctors. If you, we've already lined up this many, we continue to add to them. We don't want people to have to travel. There are ones like the BAP in Miami and other cities in Florida, in southern Florida. We're continuing to work on this. We keep adding to the list. The list is published. If you want to find out a doctor near you, you can go to the website where it says MAF physician list, and you could enter your zip code online in that spot, and then it'll tell you who the doctors are that are close to your zip code. You just look it up, okay? It's very easy to figure it out, or you contact us. You may email us or call us, and we'll help you find somebody. You make those appointments with the MAF doctors yourself, just like you make an appointment with any doctor. And we talked about this earlier. Unlike the BAP, this is something your insurance or you pay for to get that exam. This is our contact information, our phone number. You can email us, you can write us. Anybody who wants my direct dial number, you come see me, I'll give it to you. My email is obrown@browngreer.com. That's pretty easy. You can contact me anytime you want something, okay? And we have people in our firm who've been doing this for years. And every law firm gets a special contact assigned to that firm who handles all that law firm's claims and helps them get through the whole process. We have people who are specially trained to talk to you if you don't have a lawyer. We can even help you file the claim form. We can get on the phone with you and fill it out for you. Ask you the questions, we type it in for you. We'll walk you through each step of this claims process. It's a lot of pieces and it sounds hard, but it's not. We will make it happen for you and walk you through it. All you got to do is contact us, okay? Medical records. If you have a diagnosis from before, like before January 2017, you get the records from that doctor. You go see that doctor, she fills out the form, you get the records. If you go through the BAP, that doctor is going to give you the records to give to us. If you go through the MAF, that doctor is going to send them directly to us. If you think you want to find out if you have any of these neurocognitive disorders or impairments, like the 1 or the 1.5 or 2, you should go to the BAP. It's free, and they will tell you that. Those doctors in the BAP exam cannot diagnose ALS, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. If somebody thinks that they have that, or a family member does, they should go to an MAF doctor to get that diagnosis.
What if they're both?
Of what?
What if they're both certified as both? Would they do that?
They'll do both, but they've been told, and the settlement agreement says, the program pays for the neurological, neurocognitive piece. The ALS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's piece is, even though done by the same doctor, separate exam, separate cost. But there is no advantage, disadvantage to doing one or the other. The BAP doctors, unless they happen to be also MAF, can't diagnose ALS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. The BAP doctors can diagnose 1.0, 1.5, and 2 of the neurocognitive disorders. And that doctor will tell you, you need to get tested for Alzheimer's too. And then it shifts into an MAF job. But there really is no advantage or disadvantage over the other. if you want to find out if you have any neurocognitive impairment, go to the BAP doctor. It's free, and that doctor will tell you what else you need to do. Okay? And remember this 10% haircut you get if you don't go through it later on for a lot of people. Okay? Does that help?
Yeah. The thing is, even like the whole thing about the BAP being free, if the MAF is better than the BAP, I'll pay for the MAF
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
let my kids and my wife know what's wrong with me before having
I don't think, yeah, I got it. The question is the MAF better, so I'll pay for that. I don't think you ought to see the MAF diagnoses as better. The BAP, highly qualified, they're going to tell you and do these tests to do this, the neurocognitive 1, 1.5, and 2. If you turns out that doctor thinks you have Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or ALS, then you got to be in the MAF doctor's hands. But it's not like you're going to get a better exam in one or the other.